Hello, I'm Anthony David Hobbs, and this is my first Star Wars review. Now, the Star Wars franchise is 40 years old, so I thought, I better do some Star Wars reviews, to celebrate the 40th anniversary and all that. And I'm not going to do them in the order they were made, but in the order they're set. So, of course, we start with Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, And the first time I saw Phantom Menace in the cinema, in the summer of 1999, I was disappointed. I hated it. It was an awful story. It was gawky and awkward, and they seemed to be losing the plot several times in the film. You know, and there's one awkward moment in a movie. This has a lot of awkward moments, In fact, one of my friends summed up the film by saying it's really, really good bit, really, really awful bit, really, really good bit, really, really awful bit. It's very uneven. It doesn't have a natural flow like the original films did. And it just doesn't feel like a Star Wars film. It's so different to what we're familiar with the first three films, However, it was the most hyped movie of all time, but it was not the greatest movie of all time, no, by no means. However, it is not as bad as some people make out. I mean, I think it's because people were so disappointed because it wasn't proportionate to the hype, they exaggerate and say it's worse than it is, but The Phantom Menace did have some good things. It wasn't all bad, Okay, we'll start by talking about Jar Jar Binks. There he is there. And, Jar Jar Binks was the first CGI character to be a lead character, They'd had CGI characters before, but they just had bit parts. This was the first major star, which in my opinion was a bad move, because Jar Jar Binks would have been a lot less annoying if he'd only had a small bit part, but no, he's a central character throughout the film. And, the problem with him is, of course, we need some comic relief in a Star Wars film. R2-D2 and C-3PO, they provide comic relief in the original films, but they did useful stuff. They had useful skills to help the heroes. Jar Jar Binks doesn't have any useful skills at all. He's just useless. He's just there. It's so contrived. It's so obvious. He's just there to appeal to kids, to sell the toys. And but before the film was released, there was no doubt in anyone's mind that Jar Jar Binks would be super cool. He was going to be the new Chewbacca. And I remember in the summer of '99 all these reruns of TV shows about slapstick comedy, because that's what Jar Jar Binks does. Yes, there was no doubt he'd be popular. He turned out to be incredibly unpopular, And however, here's a bit of a twist. Now, Jar Jar Binks is very annoying, don't get me wrong, but the human actors are quite annoying, but for a different reason, Jar Jar Binks can't really speak English that well, being a Gungan, but at least his acting is a bit more believable. Whereas the human actors, they talk like this. Oh no, there's some baddies coming from over there. We better get away very quickly. Why? Why are they talking in this stiff wooden way? It just looks so ridiculous, I mean, is it to sound like they're from a galaxy far, far away? Or do they talk in this silly, patronising way to appeal to kids? Well, if that's the case, that's silly, because nobody talks in this silly way in the original trilogy, So that's really dumb, Ironically, Jar Jar Binks has more life in him than the human actors, that's very bad, And, okay, some good things. Well, the pod race, very impressive special effects there, fight to the finish. The lightsaber duel was good at the end. Really good choreography, these are meant to be Jedi, for heaven's sake, have lightning reflexes. We never saw that in the original trilogy, so I like the lightsaber fighting. The army of battle droids, that was really impressive CGI, Okay, but the problem is Darth Maul, really cool fighter, a great villain, except we know little or nothing about him. In the original trilogy, we know lots about Darth Vader, about his backstory and stuff, so it's a big deal when he has a fight. But when there's a villain you know little or nothing about, that doesn't work as well. No, it doesn't make a very dramatic ending, no. And, why do we go to the planet Tatooine again? That was a bit silly. The story would have worked just as fine on a different planet. And, okay, here's a bit of visual aid here. That's C-3PO in his most primitive stage. He's not quite completed yet, And, yes, there were loads of Star Wars merchandise, loads and loads of action figures and vehicles before the film was even released. And this one, like a lot of the action figures then, his gimmick is he has this little computer chip that enables him to talk. So yes, very well made toys. They went all out on the budget for the toys. And, well, the thing is, C-3PO and R2-D2 are great Star Wars characters, don't get me wrong, but I didn't want to see them in this film. I wanted to see two other robot characters, and then slowly, in one of the sequels, we get to meet R2-D2 and C-3PO. Because it's too much of a coincidence that C-3PO just happens to be on the same planet where he was in the first one, yeah, and that he knows Anakin Skywalker, and then the exact same two robots, R2-D2 and C-3PO, get to meet the other heroes from the next generation. That's too much of a coincidence, and it's not very believable, yeah. And Anakin Skywalker, I really had to suspend my disbelief that he could drive a pod racer, but later in the story, he can fly a Naboo starfighter with no training whatsoever. He just happens to press the right buttons. That is totally unbelievable. I mean, this is a fantasy adventure film, yes, but in the original Star Wars films, George Lucas was making the effort to make it as plausible and as believable as possible. In Phantom Menace, he's not making any effort at all. You know, he's just like anything goes. Just, oh, throw this, that, there, any random stuff anywhere. Yeah, yes, he's not making the effort to make it plausible. Now, Phantom Menace was not rushed. It took years to make, but it looks like it's rushed. Yes, yeah. There's too much focus on the special effects, not enough focus on the character development and the story development. Yeah, and okay, I'll have to say something about the Force. The Force, apparently, this new twist that we didn't know about before, has midichlorians, which are tiny microscopic alien creatures. So, if I was a Jedi and I make an object float in the air by waving my hand like that, I'm not making it move. No. Microscopic alien creatures are making it move, and I'm commanding them to make it move. Yeah. Use the Force. Use the Force of little aliens. I didn't have a problem with that twist. No, the problem I did have was that I always assumed, from the original trilogy, that if you want to be a Jedi, yes, it's your decision, your choice, and you do the training and learn how to use the Force. Then I found out that in this film, that no, apparently, no, the Force chooses you. And only those that have midichlorians in their blood get to be Jedi. Oh, well, that's silly. What about free will? What about choosing the career for yourself? Yeah. And I assumed you start the training as a Jedi when you're about 19 or 20. No. A new twist here. You start training as a Jedi when you're a toddler. That's common practice. When you're a toddler, you are not old enough to make decisions that affect the rest of your life. That's ridiculous. Yeah. And Anakin Skywalker, he wins his freedom. He's no longer a slave. And he's going to leave the house and seek his fortune at the age of 8. No, you leave home when you're a young man, not when you're 8. You're 8 years old. You're not old enough to go out in the wide world. That's absurd. Yeah, I mean, in the original trilogy, they were all young adults. They were grown up, old enough to leave home, you know. So, yes, George Lucas pushes your believability a lot in the Phantom Menace, yeah. So, in other words, Phantom Menace had potential, but bits and bobs that could have been done better, like, well, for instance, Anakin Skywalker, he builds C-3PO, he wins the pod race, and he destroys the battle station at the end of the film. Why did he have to do all three? The story would have worked just as fine if different characters had done those three things. Yeah, so it was too much for one person to do, and it was not very believable. Yeah, so they could have done it a lot better. So, yes, Phantom Menace needed tidying up a lot, yeah. But in spite of what I've said, it did pioneer great special effects, and Liam Neeson did well out of it. Yes, he had loads of film offers after this film, yeah. So, Phantom Menace had potential, but yes, needed tidying up a lot, yeah. Okay, well, that's enough from me. Thank you for watching. I'm Anthony Hobbs, and I'm never bored.